Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for sticking by until the concluding remarks. I hope you're feeling recharged and ready for one of the most important conversations of the day. If you have spent any time around the EV Center, you've probably heard us say, electrification isn't just about technology, it's about people. None of this transformation is possible without a well-prepared, adaptive, and inclusive workforce. This next panel will explore multifaceted strategies driving Michigan's electric vehicle industry and economic growth. We will delve into how diverse learning pathways and strong community partnership can synchronize workforce training with industry standards, fostering broad opportunities and enhancing Michigan's role in building a sustainable EV industry. Moderating the panel is Jessi Kittel, the EV Center's workforce development lead. Jessi brings experience across industry, academia, and public policy, and has been instrumental in launching our statewide efforts to prepare Michigan's workforce for what's ahead. I'll later introduce the rest of the panel, or let them introduce themselves, but you're in for a fantastic conversation. Please welcome Jessi Kittel and the outstanding panel to the stage.
This morning, we explored industry innovations and technologies shaping the future of transportation. Now, we're shifting our focus to human elements behind these advancements, the voices, skills, and communities essential to the growth of a thriving mobility infrastructure. Our panelists will share their insights on how education, workforce development, community engagement, and social impacts intersect to create accessible and sustainable e-mobility solutions. We're joined by several experts today. We'll start with some prepared questions and then continue to a Q&A. So do please feel free to make use of those cards on your table, and we will have a question wrangler come around to collect them. If I can invite our panelists to join me on the stage. I'd like to introduce our panelists. We have Jason Siegel, Director of Education at the Electric Vehicle Center, Ashlee Breitner, Director of Workforce Development at the Electric Vehicle Center and Managing Director of the Economic Growth Institute, Carmen Quigg, Director of Community Development at Economic Growth Institute, and Michelle Campbell, Electric Vehicle Center's Broader Impacts Lead and the Program Director of Culture, Grants, and Advancement at the Office of Culture, Community, and Equity, College of Engineering. All right, so to kick off this discussion, can you each go a little bit more into your role and share how your focus plays a crucial role in this evolving ecosystem?
All right, so I guess we're going in order. Yeah. If I can do that without screaming into the mic. So Jason Siegel, I'm a research professor in mechanical engineering, but I have the unique perspective also of getting to teach a graduate course and work with a lot of the amazing student teams that you guys saw if you got a chance to take a tour through the Wilson Center. So I think one of the main things that I'm very excited about in my role as education director for the EV Center is getting to bring more experiential learning opportunities to our students, right? The students who are actively participating in the Wilson Center are the ones that have gone out and found a team, right? And so my contribution to them, I get to work with them to help connect them with all of you, right? So to bring that industry expertise to be able to get those students to be able to make connections for them. And they're better at it than I am, I have to say, but learn how they make great connections as well. But thinking about getting them the resources they need to do well in these experiential learning. Working with collaborators like Joe Zhao at U of M Dearborn and the Battery Workforce Challenge, right? Being able to send our senior design students in ME 450 or MDP programs, the Auto 503 program, right? Be able to have them do a practicum where they're contributing to these design challenges. So really finding opportunities in the curriculum for students to get these hands-on experiences, and then thinking about even how we bring this down to the undergraduate curriculum. If I look at a class like thermodynamics, right, it's got a whole bunch of IC engine examples that our faculty have developed over the last really 100 years of that technology, right? Now, how do we get EV technology relevant examples even down into the undergraduate classroom, right? How do we make that accessible for faculty that want to bring this into their course? So these are really the challenges. I would say my role is really internally looking to create curriculum and support really the initiatives that we have for workforce development, using things like the REU students and bring students on campus, and then also our amazing cohort of research associates and undergrads and grad students that are doing both research for the EV Center and working on education projects, right? How do we leverage the content that they're developing to help support our workforce and external activities? So turn over to Ashlee.
Good afternoon, everyone. Ashlee Breitner. For those of you that know me, you know I wear a few hats around here at the university. About 8 years ago, I joined the Economic Growth Institute here at the University of Michigan, and EGI, as most of us in that space call it, serves a very unique role here at the university. What we really do is we're an outward-facing unit, and we really work to lift up the resources of the university in order to drive economic growth through supply chains, particularly with the focus on serving small to medium-sized manufacturers, and also those communities. We know we can't have strong communities if we don't have strong companies, and vice versa. We take a very boots on the ground approach to our work. So our team typically comes from industry or economic development backgrounds, and they have lived and breathed the challenges that many of you face on a daily basis. And so they are out there in the communities, in companies every day, working to support you all, build capacity, but really listening to the challenges that companies and communities face on a regular basis. And I can say without a doubt, definitely over the last few years, almost every single organization we walk into, their first challenge is workforce. What keeps them up at night? When you ask them, what is that? It's workforce. And in lots of different capacities, those are challenges. So about 2 years ago, Alan, knowing our boots on the ground approach for EGI, Alan asked us to lead the workforce development pillar of the Electric Vehicle Center. He saw a clear vision that he wanted the EV Center to be industry driven, that we want to make sure we listen to the needs and challenges of industry, and we're working to lift up the tremendous amount of resources we have here at the university in order to support you all. So within the workforce development pillar of the center, I always say we serve kind of cradle to gray, right? So when you think about all of the workforce pipeline from our kindergarteners and exposing them to EV as a potential career pathway, up through upskilling and reskilling our current workforce, that we really want to remain strong as we move through this transition. That's our space. If you cut out kind of the middle of that in our traditional kind of university programs, that's Jason's space from an education perspective, but you'll see many of the initiatives, hopefully we get a chance to talk about today, we work on together, because you can't pull workforce and education apart. They really do work in tandem together. Carmen?
Thanks, Ashlee. Thanks, Jessi. Hi, I'm Carmen Quigg, and I am the Director of Community Development at the Economic Growth Institute. I underscore everything that Ashlee said about our work and our mission and our priorities to do good work for companies and communities, and in particular, those groups or individual entities that are facing economic opportunity, economic disruption, economic stabilization, and economic growth. My role at EGI, as Ashlee indicated, is to work with our community partners in several different technical assistance ways. And when I say community, it could be local government, it could be nonprofits, work groups, coalitions, those groups that are at the table with the small to medium-sized businesses, working toward navigating local government stabilization and understanding what that means. So me and my wonderful team really help drive that technical assistance to communities in several different ways. First, we try and provide education and understanding of the impacts that are happening within the community and what that means for all the systems that are there. So again, it could mean direct impacts to the local government who are facing a loss of tax revenue. So we provide data, analytics, we bring in experts to help understand what that really means so that we can walk alongside the community and their partners in putting forward a strategic plan. Next, one of our technical assistance capabilities is strategic planning. So we use that as one of the main tools in our toolbox for assisting communities. Without a plan forward, you're kind of stuck where you're at. So we really try and drive that not only extension of their team by capacity building, but helping to map out with my team a plan forward for the community and those impacted, or if they're seeking, again, going after opportunities as well. In addition to that, I had mentioned kind of experts that we bring in. As was mentioned by Ashlee, we really try and drive and dig deep within the university as well as our other ecosystem to identify those resources based on what we've heard is the need in the community. And then we really drive collaboration and partnership across all the entities, not only those facing with a priority of workforce and education, but we really try and bring in the other systems and industry partners because my motto is better together. And working in coordination and collaboration really makes a marketable impact to the community that we're serving. So that's it in a nutshell. I'm pleased to be on this panel today, and I'll share more stories as we have questions from Jessi. I'll hand it to Michelle.
Thanks, Carmen. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michelle Campbell. I'm the Broader Impacts Lead for the Electric Vehicle Center. I also hold another role in the College of Engineering. I am so honored to be on this panel with my colleagues and friends here today. I'm going to tell you about two primary ways that I work in the Electric Vehicle Center, but first, I want to share that Al and I met a couple years ago when we were working on an NSF engines proposal, and in that team, I was the equity anchor. So every time we were talking about the research or the translation pieces, the workforce, the education, always anchoring us back into inclusion, equity in our community. Here for the Electric Vehicle Center, we have a really big emphasis on accessibility. And I thank Larry so much last night for setting me and us up so well to think about the way that access correlates to freedom. But more specifically, what access looks like in the EVC activities is, for example, if you look at page 2 of your digital program, there's an accessibility guide. So it gives some information, for example, about interfaith rooms we have in the building, lactation rooms, our CART services that we have today, which is real-time captioning that is helpful for people who are deaf, hard of hearing, or people who are neurodivergent. So making sure that the spaces that we're setting up and inviting folks into is accessible for them to participate, be included, and help us drive innovation. I also work very closely with Jason and Ashlee and many other members of the team, really helping us think about the premise that if talent is equally distributed across the population, but opportunity is not equally distributed, what role can we play in helping to remedy that situation? Because at the end of the day, if we're not looking at that, we are missing people. And if we're missing people, then we're missing innovation. And so we really need to be focusing on accessibility in the broadest term, but also thinking about who is in the room, where the innovation is made, where the decisions are being made. That is what is going to help us drive the work that we do in education, workforce, and overall the Electric Vehicle Center. With that, I'll turn it back to you, Jessi.
Great, thank you all so much. Let us dig in a little bit more specifically. I've prepared some questions. They're going to be more targeted towards each of your domains. So the first one that I have is really for Ashlee and Jason in particular. So our advances in mobility are creating many career opportunities, but there are known barriers to entry. So how can we ensure that workforce training and education is being developed that is accessible, inclusive, and aligned with industry needs?
You want me to jump in? So, I mean, the way that I always describe this is absolutely, there are challenges and barriers in accessing resources all the time. And we're currently working on some tools to help with that. But at the end of the day, if we started the process with developing resources with all stakeholders involved, we would break down these barriers before they became barriers, right? If we had, as we think about workforce development solutions, whether it's a training program, curriculum, hands-on learning experience, right? If we have all of the stakeholders at the table, broad audiences to hear what those challenges are going to be or what they could be, but in the design process of the solutions we're working on, we will design the solution with those things in mind, and we'll get ahead of the game, as opposed to what we see happen more often than not now, is we develop a solution and we assume it's going to work for everybody, and then we have to figure out how do we break down those barriers after. So, we're always trying to think from the perspective of how do we have the right people at the table, and the people that have run into those barriers before in other past experiences in order to help us design those effective solutions from the beginning, as opposed to trying to work backwards.
And I would add on to that, some of the things that we do on the education side that sort of tailor or dovetail into that is, thinking about, who has the opportunity to even apply to graduate programs like Graduate School of Michigan. And so by working with Yi Yang Lee and creating an EVC-funded REU experience, we're looking at taking students who may not traditionally look at Michigan for graduate school, but inviting them to come into campus, get embedded with a U of M PI that's working on one of these EVC-funded research projects, interact with grad students, learn about what it is to be a grad student, right? What it is to do research, and find out if that's something that they want to do, and scaffold that with, programs that help them develop their application materials and then get ready to enter grad school. And so thinking about, offering pathways to help bridge some of those barriers, once we identify what those barriers are, we can create programming that seeks to address that. And so those are the types of things that, we have to be thinking about. Again, who's not there and how do we connect with them? And taking advantage of, programs that are offered through the OCCE, like having, students be ambassadors to reach out and make those connections is really important.
Michelle, you used a phrase a little bit earlier that I want to sort of repeat, which is accessibility defined broadly. So to follow up on that, what is the role of access and accessibility defined broadly in driving innovation and competitiveness within the EV industry and research ecosystems?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So if we go back to my opening remarks where we assume that talent is, distributed broadly, but opportunity is not, that can lead us to ask some really interesting questions. For example, today, take a look around. Who do you see in this room? And who do you not see in this room? And I mean that broadly by, the companies, the organizations that might be here, the different social identities that might be in the room. Is there something that we've done to unintentionally include some people and exclude others? Those are some of the questions we need to be asking, whether we're thinking about our education programs, our workforce programs, or the communities that we serve. So that's one way we can think about access. we can also think about this at the research level, right? Who is doing the research? We saw some of the students earlier. What are the different backgrounds that we're drawing from? Michigan has such a great track record of having interdisciplinary research, and our faculty are very, very collaborative in terms of faculty in the engineering field. And that collaboration can breed access because it's not shut off. There's multiple ways for different types of people from different places to come to Michigan to get an undergraduate degree, get a graduate degree, engage in research, and then for folks from industry, maybe make it to one of your companies as part of your workforce. And then we can also think about the EV itself. I am an EV owner. I have a Chevy Bolt. I was talking with some folks earlier. It meets my needs great. As Larry was talking about last night, I'm your typical commuter, take like a long trip every once in a while. And so that product meets my needs and my living situation, but is that true for a larger share of the market? Is that true for folks who don't look like me, who don't have a life that I live? And so we can also think about this as the end user and the life cycle of the technology that we're producing. At what stages can we be asking who's included, who's not included, and how do we bring more people to the table? So I'll turn it back to you.
Great, and that really leads into our next question. Owning an EV is financially out of reach for many households, but we do want everyone to be involved in this transition and to make the best they can out of the situation. So there are ways for individuals and communities to benefit from the EV transition. So for Carmen and Ashlee, I was wondering if you could speak about how we can ensure broader participation in the mobility transition and that is beyond personal vehicle ownership.
Yeah, thanks, Jessi. I agree. Participation in the EV transition should not be limited to those who can afford a personal vehicle. There are many ways and many access points to participating in the EV transition at kind of all economic levels or all community function levels as well. What we're seeing in my work that we do, and then also listening to my colleagues here on stage with the work that they're doing, there's a lot of ways that communities can get involved. I echo what Michelle said about there are all kind of access points for participation, and really the decision-making process should be people-focused and community-focused, those that are going to impact those who are the users or the businesses, the small businesses who are going to participate in this economy. So aside from the technology, I will leave that up to my, kind of those in the audience who are focusing on the technology component of it. The community or people-focused part of it would include, having individuals and systems within the community share in the development of the mobility solutions. And that means, if they're going to be micro-mobility options, ride-sharing options, or as we heard this morning, an electric trolley on the east side of Detroit. I mean, there are plenty of ways that people can opt in to the electric vehicle industry without owning a car. Then it goes on to the small businesses, providing pathways and opportunities for the small businesses to diversify into the electric vehicle industry by programs such as many of the research and active programs that we've heard today, and that we move forward through the Economic Growth Institute and others at the state level, making sure that there are those access points for the small businesses, the entrepreneurs, to get involved in the electric vehicle industry and being champions for those too. We also know that, universities and policymakers play a very significant role in lifting up the voices of these populations to get involved and to be at the table. So I charge, everybody in this room to think about, as Michelle said, who's not in the room when you're having conversations about developing a system or a component of this industry shift that would affect large groups of people or end users. And then the education component, which was already talked about in this panel, was talked about a lot this morning. Sometimes just unlocking education so that there aren't misconceptions of what this means, or we try and get away from the limited understanding that folks have around the EV industry. Education is power and understanding, and contributing resources to getting the word out about the opportunities for participation in the EV industry. Ashlee?
Carmen, you said that really well, and I think the only thing I'll add to that is the other opportunity, obviously, in the space that I think about every day. If you throughout the presentations, you've heard about chargers, you've heard about the manufacturing process for the EVs, you've heard about the infrastructure. So it's this entire ecosystem of workforce development solutions. There is a tremendous opportunity there, and what we're finding is as individuals make this transition into electric vehicle related jobs, there are tremendous opportunities for transferable skills across industries. And so while they may be shifting that direction now or in the near future, the skills they're learning in that space are very applicable across many industries and will create an opportunity for them really for long-term career success. So that to me is also a tremendous opportunity to engage in the EV ecosystem, regardless of if you can, pull a electric vehicle out of your garage or not. There's a tremendous workforce opportunity and skill development opportunity there.
Thank you both. Jason, returning to some of our traditional education programs, in this rapidly evolving EV industry, hands-on skills and practical experience seems vital for preparing our students to enter this workforce. How can experiential learning strategies be effectively integrated into degree programs and other pathways?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I'm really excited is developing some hands-on laboratory experiences, so classroom experiences for students to get experience, connecting to a battery cycler, instrumenting it with thermocouples, right? Programming the battery cycler, making a mistake, right? Learning through that process, learning from their mistakes in a safe and controlled environment, and then being able to collect the data and use that, right, in their classroom exercises. So creating sort of scaffolds that actually use, industry tools and practices. And I think, Terry challenged me yesterday, getting safety in front of the classroom, getting students comfortable with what they're working on, but also encouraging them to ask questions, right? Question, why am I doing this way? What's the reason behind it? Is it safe? How do I test or how do I verify that? So getting students the experience that they know to ask these questions, and not, I'm doing this because my boss told me to do it, right? But why? And so I think naturally breeding that curiosity and making sure that we're creating an environment where people ask those questions and know that they should be asking those questions. Some of the other things that we think about, at least in terms of hands-on training, is thinking about manufacturing. In the past, Greg Less has run a really successful course that actually takes students through battery manufacturing, right? During the transition of the pilot lines, we actually created that as an online course content, and I'm looking forward to, getting back into using our sort of amazing EVC facilities and pilot line to teach students, right, the challenges about manufacturing and how you scale, right, these challenges to solve really much bigger problems.
I do have a follow-up for you. What role can partnerships with EV manufacturers play in shaping these effective opportunities?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. This is where, I actually need the help from all of our industry partners, not only to tell us what are the relevant problems, but if we think about bringing case studies into the classroom, this is one of the things that I really enjoy being an advisor for these MDP projects is, right, MDP is basically a multidisciplinary design problem that gets students working on an industry problem, right? And so they're getting classroom credit for working on this, and the industry members right, are getting a prototype or demonstration out of that. But looking at how you bring these case studies into the classroom, whether they're case studies that a professor can present, or sort of the most, I would say, authentic or realistic way to do that is having students work directly with your engineers to solve a problem that matters to you. So thinking about how you engage with students. Another one would be participating in design reviews. So all the student teams in the Wilson Center, right, are developing EVs, and they really benefit from this industry interaction where they present, here's my design, help me figure out how it's going to fail. What are the things that I didn't think about because I've never built a vehicle before, right? So getting that industry experience, right? It's not a huge time commitment from your side. It is a huge benefit to the students.
All right, I'm going to start at the far end for a question that I am going to pose to each of you. So starting with Michelle, and really for all of you, your teams are working on initiatives in this space right now. Some really great work is being done. Can you tell us about one of the ones that you'd like this audience to know about today?
Yeah, we have several initiatives ongoing and planned for the K-12 space. I think it's so important that we are getting youth excited about EVs. There's so many different things catching their attention these days, AI especially. And so it's really important that we help get especially high school students who are about to embark on choosing, their college major, the path that they're taking career-wise, to really pay attention to EV careers, clean careers. And we can do that in the K-12 space with various partners. There's various summer camps that Jason has partnered with. We also have the Michigan Engineering Zone, which is situated in downtown Detroit and is going to be part of the new University of Michigan Innovation Center when that is complete in a few years. And so there's so much convergence around EV that we need to remember, that we need to plant the seeds for our future. And in this case, that's in the K-12 space.
I'll describe one initiative that we have right now, but quite frankly, the way that we approach this initiative is part of our best practices in my department and the Institute, is really to go out and help for this industry transition, communities to have a voice and to plan for the transition. So we have an initiative called MyVTIP, or the Michigan Vehicle Technology Transformation Impact Project, and we call it MyVTIP for short, where me and my wonderful team are providing technical assistance to communities here in the kind of lower half of the Lower Peninsula to make sure that they are able to participate in the EV transition. It's going to affect their residents. It's going to affect their workforce pipeline. It's going to affect their communities. And by this initiative, it's providing that opportunity to bring the technical assistance, to bring information solutions to the conversation so that we as facilitators can help develop a plan for responsiveness. And through those strategic planning and engagements that my team does, we're able to kind of uncover the priorities for each community around how to mitigate or how to face or how to unlock opportunities for priorities for them. Always, or most often, the communities want to address workforce. They want to address the industry partners in their community as well. They want to address infrastructure. Those are consistent priorities for the communities that we're working with. And then there'll be some unique priorities for them based on, their own local geography. They might have some policy concerns. They might have some other economic development for large industry partnership priorities, all of which we move forward with actionable support to their projects that they're bringing forward. So we really try and come in and bring the value of partnership and collaboration to developing a plan, and then unlocking resources. We see ourselves as a resource provider to bring those solutions to help them move forward in an actionable way, projects and solutions. So we learn a lot through this process. So we're always collaborating with other departments within EGI, and then also other units here on campus where we're always sharing what we've learned and trying to bring back additional resources to the communities that we're serving. This is replicable, this is scalable. It's not novel, but it's something that the communities aren't typically able to carry forward themselves in an actionable and quick way. So that's one example of something, but we're able to kind of replicate that project over project.
Awesome. Thanks, Carmen. Since I wear two hats, I'm going to give you two quick answers since I know we want to have time for questions from the audience too. First one, piggybacking off what Michelle mentioned there, we have a great partnership with Dr. Elliot Soloway in the back of the room. Elliot, can you wave for me? If you do not know him yet, you want to know him. He has great energy supporting our student population, particularly looking at that K-8 space. Their Center for Digital Curricula has created these amazing modules focused in the EV space. They call them Brain Ventures. Super innovative, fun modules, both to help students and educators and the teachers learn more and get students engaged in EV. We have a great partnership with them. Elliot and his team are educators, but he fully admitted, I need help from a technical perspective, and I need connections to employers to get students understanding what are they learning and how could that apply to future career pathways for them. So our team's done a really great job providing the technical expertise and also creating some employer videos. Jessi, our video director, has helped to create with many of you in the room today to get students exposed to additional career opportunities and get them thinking about what could be their pathway forward. And the second opportunity from an EGI perspective that I just wanted to mention, I know I have lots of kind of larger employers here in the room today, but think about your supply chains for a minute. We have a particular program right now funded by the Economic Development Administration in order to help small to medium-sized manufacturers make this transition. You all know your suppliers. You know they are working in their day-to-day, doing everything they can to get product out the door. They're busy working in their business, not on their business, right? And so for them to think 3, 5 years out, 10 years out, what their business model is going to need to look like through this transition, it's hard for them to find the capacity to do that. They operate very differently than larger manufacturers. So this program has not only technical resources, capacity building resources, but also funding to help them make this transition. So I just wanted to make sure I get that shout out in so you can share that out with your suppliers.
Yeah, thank you. So one of the things that I'm working on that I'm really excited about, it's a longer term project in terms of the university, but developing a master's degree, so a professional MEng degree in battery technology in the mechanical engineering department. And so this is looking at sort of creating a degree that'll train people in how to engineer batteries, both for automotive and energy storage applications, and kind of looking at how we broaden that across the college. But starting with that as an ME program, and then thinking about developing courses and working with faculty that are already teaching some of the courses that support our automotive and manufacturing degree programs. So how do we create something that's really brings battery technology to the forefront of that degree? And one of the labs that I'm developing for that is a battery management systems programming lab. So being able to bring students in to look at sort of the hardware software development side of the battery management system. So I teach, graduate course in modeling, and then looking at bringing the automotive sort of software in the loop, hardware in the loop validation tools, and teaching students, how do I hit the ground running to be a BMS engineer or to deploy these battery systems, when I land my first job.
That's Great. And because it's something that ties a message together, one of the things we've been talking about is how do we effectively work with industry to address workforce, community, education needs. And with the battery manufacturing master's program, that really is something we've heard time and time again from our industry partners. So that is how we're able to guide the program in that direction to address that need. Well, thank you all so much. That does kind of complete my list of questions. I do think we have a few more minutes in case there are any questions from the audience. We do have. We're doing cards. Do we have our question runner? Thank you. All right, I think I would start this one with Jason. So is there a path to a master's degree without a bachelor or associate's degree?
So right now, the MEng degree is part of, I mean, it would be a follow-on to a bachelor's degree. I think we have good mechanisms for like SUGS programs or concurrent graduate undergraduate. So sort of feeding straight from an undergraduate into a master's program. So, but I don't think I don't think it's typically a program that you apply into undergraduate all the way through master's. It's typically a transition. But it's an easier internal transition to do that.
The reason I ask is I've managed now for 10 years highly technical teams, and I'm a U of M graduate myself. I've had U of M graduates, and I've had brilliant machinists. People are coming from on the line who can run circles around a classically trained engineer and have brilliant ideas about powertrain and where they can add. So is there another way to feed or have a more cyclic cycle where industry, somebody with 10 years of experience with technical core competencies, support of their employer, to come back for a degree? And at the bachelor level, because that's really like training somebody to, or what I'm trying to get at is like a master's level is to help really get that industry experience as equivalent or core competent engineering work, and then linking it back to the U of M engineering, ecosystem.
Yeah, I think that's really a great question. I think that's maybe an area where the university is not as well set up to tackle that need. I think that one of the ways that we can address that is through the certificates and skilling programs that leverage some of the same content that we're developing in the master's degree. So an example is this online battery manufacturing course, right? That was developed by me in a postdoc, right? We're taking content that could be delivered at the graduate level and creating that as a self-contained credential. And so if you think about, a mechanism where you string together credentials to get that same effect, right? It's not a master's degree, but you've got experience and exposure to that same material. So I think that's one way that we could look to address that. I think the admissions is really set up to take bachelor's into the master's. And so I think that's going to be a hard thing to change at the college level, but it's something definitely to consider. So thank you. Yeah.
Since I have the mic, if I think about our pipeline problem, particularly on the technical side, these are teenagers who have already made their decisions in general. Have we succeeded in rebranding the auto industry away from the Rust Belt old tech to what it is today? And if that's our pipeline problem, what do we do to fix that branding issue?
Well, I'll chime in, but it's Jessi that's doing the work. So recording videos of people that are working in these jobs and making that part of, basically Elliot's Brain Ventures. So showing students at the K through 8 level, here are what these jobs look like. Here is what, somebody who's working as a technician or an engineer in an EV related field actually does. And I think that, if they don't have a parent or a relative that is working in those jobs, right, that is one way to help get that exposure and reach a broader audience.
And I can add to that just a little bit. What we're trying to set out to do with some of these career videos for younger audiences is really modeling of paths. We were lucky enough to have someone who's a battery manufacturing technician who planned to be an artist and went to fine arts school. But she made comparisons between these processes. We then have more traditional people who are, came in, wanted to be an engineer from the time they were 5 years old. So we found that encouraging these attitudes and letting people have a path where they can envision themselves, whoever they might be, that's what we're trying to set out to do with that series.
I might even argue. There we go. I might even argue that there's significant space there for policy considerations at the local and state level for investments in funding at this level too, to help boost some of the strategies that were already discussed. So again, making this a priority at the local and the regional or state levels as well is really gonna, help answer the pipeline question. I have family members as well who went through the trades. My adult children went through the trades. So I agree with seeing a parent model as my husband's in the trades as well. But outside of that, I think in order to reach those students who don't have family members that direct experience in the household, there needs to be policy changes.
And there we go. I'll add two things. I think for those of us sitting in the room, we're thinking, how can we make clean cool? I think the youth, particularly middle school and high school, what we've seen, at least my colleagues who work with them quite closely, is they are really concerned about social problems of today. Everything that they do is really thinking about what is the social impact. So they're merging that technical with the big societal issues that we have. And they love to see and hear about how they individually or their team could impact that larger societal issue that's happening. And then I'll also add that let's also not forget that if we want to truly have an accessible, inclusive workforce, we need to be able to think about how do we make these jobs somewhat easy to get with clear training pathways, whether that be through a traditional degree program, through a community college, or through a trades program, but jobs, good paying jobs with benefits still really, really matter, especially when we're talking about a lot of our students who are coming from families that may have had that tradition of, the industry manufacturing fallout from the 90s and the 2000s. That was true of my family. And as I was going throughout my education, the number one most important thing for me, besides I want to make a difference in this world, was also I need to make sure I have a good paying job, because I saw my dad get laid off. I saw my mom get laid off, right? And it's just a different economic reality than what we were seeing 20, 30, 40 years ago for the youth of today.
Great. Well, thank you all. Michelle, Carmen, Ashlee, Jason, we've really appreciated your expertise today. And we'll see you all for the next session.